Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force JTF. My name is Chaim ben Pesach. This program is dedicated to elevating the souls of Meir ben Avraham and Yitzchak ben Avraham. This program is going to be an appeal to Sarah Palin not to run for president in 2012. All the polls show that Sarah Palin is the one major Republican candidate who would lose disastrously to Barack Hussein Osama. Barack Hussein Osama, if he is reelected, God forbid, to a second term, will not have to face the voters again. And if you think he did bad things in his first term, if God forbid he's reelected and doesn't have to worry about facing the voters again, this Muslim America hater will be an unbelievable catastrophe. He's already destroying the country, but and endangering Israel and doing all types of horrible things in the world. But if he's reelected and doesn't have to worry about facing the voters, this will be an unprecedented nightmare. And I don't know if the United States will survive if that happens. And so Sarah Palin should really, really think about what a terrible tragedy it would be if she contributed to the re-election of Barack Hussein Osama. She cannot defeat him. If she were to somehow miraculously win the Republican nomination for president, I don't think she would win the Republican nomination if she does run. But if she ran and somehow won the Republican nomination, there is zero chance that she could come even close to Barack Hussein Osama in November 2012. She would have no chance of defeating him. None. All the polls show that she would lose overwhelmingly. The same polls that show that Mike Huckabee and other Republican candidates are running neck and neck, are running a very close race, effectively in a tie with Barack Hussein Osama. Those same polls show that Sarah Palin would lose overwhelmingly. The vast majority of independents and Democrats are against her, and even many Republicans would not vote for her. Now, let's understand some of the reasons for this. There are many, many reasons for this, and we don't have a lot of time because we're not going to, this is a short video, so we're not going to dwell on all of the reasons why Sarah Palin is unelectable in 2012. One of the reasons is that she was the governor of Alaska, which is a very sparsely populated state. So population-wise, Alaska is one of the smallest states in the country in terms of population. I think there are 700,000 people there. So it's not exactly the most challenging job in the world to be a governor of a state with only 700,000 people. If she were president, she would have to be the president of the world's last remaining superpower, which is obviously a million times more challenging. But she couldn't even handle the job of governor of Alaska. She quit in the middle of her first term. She quit, got fed up, quit, and decided she's just going to promote her books and make millions of dollars doing reality shows and promoting her books and putting her daughter on Dancing with Stars and doing all these other celebrity gigs instead of being governor of Alaska. She couldn't even handle the job of governor of Alaska. She couldn't. She is not someone who responds well to pressure and who knows how to govern. That's for sure. Can you imagine what the Democrats and the news media and the Obama campaign and everybody would do with that if she were God forbid, if she were the Republican nominee in 2012? Can you imagine the television commercials, the endless media reports showing her resigning, showing how she couldn't handle the job, showing what a mess things were in Alaska when she was governor, showing all the Republicans in Alaska who hate her, who call her incompetent and who say that she's dumb and uninformed and doesn't know how to govern. Can you imagine interviews with all those Republican politicians from Alaska who can't stand her in the middle of a campaign against Obama? Can you imagine what that would do to her? I mean, Obama would win by a landslide. In fact, she's unable to do interviews. She is so uninformed she can't even do interviews properly unless it's an interview that's favorable, like the interview she does on Fox television. In fact, one poll in Alaska, to show how disastrous her position is politically, there's a poll in Alaska that came out recently that showed that she's in 4th place in the Alaska primary running for president. She would come in 4th place in her home state because people in Alaska who know her know that she was a terrible governor. When she endorsed Joe Miller for the U.S. Senate, the people of Alaska wanted to rebel against her because most of them can't stand her. And so they actually voted for Lisa Murkowski as a write-in candidate. She wasn't even on the ballot. I mean, to actually get a situation where voters are so upset with you and so annoyed at you that they're willing to write in the name of another candidate? This was the first time since 1954, the first time in 56 years that a write-in candidate was elected to the U.S. Senate. The first time in 56 years. That's how upset the people, most of the voters in Alaska are with Sarah Palin. And don't you think that's going to come out and explode in her face if she's running against Obama? It would be a disaster. Now, she says when people bring these things up to her, well, Ronald Reagan, they said Ronald Reagan wasn't qualified, and they said Ronald Reagan wasn't smart enough to be president. Ronald Reagan was governor of California for 8 years. He was governor for 2 successful terms. How can you compare Ronald Reagan, who was governor of the biggest, of the most populous, the wealthiest and most important state in America, California, for 2 successful terms? How can you compare that to someone who couldn't even run a sparsely populated state like Alaska more than half of her term? For more than half of her term, she had to quit and run. How can you possibly compare the two? You think Sarah Palin is comparable to Ronald Reagan? You got to be kidding me. If there is a candidate who's comparable to Ronald Reagan in the race, it would be Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee was governor of Arkansas for 10.5 years. He's very popular in Arkansas to this day, and there are things he did in Arkansas that I don't agree with because I'm a real right-winger. So there are things in Arkansas that he did that I don't agree with. But the people of Arkansas liked him. He's very popular, and he certainly is very competent. And now he's taking very conservative positions on all the issues. He wants to abolish the income tax. He's a lifelong member of the NRA and a strong defender of the Second Amendment all of his life, very strongly pro-life. He has taken a strong position now on border security. He's endorsed the platform of the Minutemen. So he's taken some pretty good positions. And his positions on Israel, he is the most pro-Israel candidate in the race. That there's no question about. He's an evangelical Christian. So he has those conservative credentials, and he's a very good speaker, and he's very humorous, and he's very likable. Sarah Palin is not likable except from her fans like her, but the vast majority of the American people don't like her, and she gets into petty personal feuds with everybody. Even Joe Miller, the unsuccessful candidate she was supporting for the Senate in Alaska, even she started getting into, her and her husband Todd Palin started getting into a feud with Joe Miller in the middle of the campaign. It's one of the reasons he lost. For several weeks, they got into a public feud with him. They started doing emails attacking their own candidate. I mean, this is par for the course. Everything with her is personal and feuds. And look, I know there are people out there that like her no matter what, no matter what. Okay, they're going to like her no matter what. There are people like that. But the vast majority of the American people don't like her, don't believe in her, don't have faith in her. 64%, according to the ABC poll, said that she's unqualified to be president. 47% of Republicans say she's unqualified to be president. You can't get elected with numbers like that. People do not have confidence in her leadership ability. And I happen to think they're right. I happen to think that she is unqualified. But whether you think she's qualified or not, I don't know how anybody could think she's qualified after seeing some of the things she said and some of the interviews she's done. I mean, they were disastrous. But even if for some crazy reason you think she's qualified, with numbers like that, there is no way with numbers like that she can get elected. It's going to be hard enough beating Obama. You can't beat Obama when you have a candidate that 2/3 of the American people think is unqualified. I mean, that, from the get-go, cuts your legs off before you even start running. This is a very important election. It is essential that we defeat Barack Hussein Osama. He is a disaster and a catastrophe for America, for Israel, for Western civilization. He's a threat to the survival of all the values and all the things that we cherish. It is essential that he be defeated. Sarah Palin, whether you like her or not, is not someone who is able to defeat him. That is quite clear. You can check all these facts yourself. Investigate all this yourself. If Sarah Palin somehow sees this video, I appeal to you, Sarah. I appeal to you. Don't commit the terrible sin of helping this Muslim get reelected to the presidency, God forbid. It'll be a disaster. Don't do that. If you really love your country and you really care about the principles that you speak about, if you really care about that, do not run for president in 2012. You should support Mike Huckabee. He is qualified. He's competent. He's qualified. And maybe someday you'll be able to run for office again. Maybe. Right now, you're doing reality shows. You're doing other gigs and things. Fine. You want to make millions of dollars. You want to do those things. Fine. That's not going to get you elected to the presidency, though. Okay, people do not want to elect a female Jerry Springer to the presidency who does reality shows and does gimmicks and publicity stunts and gets $250,000 every time she gives a speech. People are not going to like that type of personality running for president. And so I appeal to you, Sarah Palin. Do not run for president in 2012, and I appeal to people who may be tempted to support her. If she runs, it is not wise to support her. It is not a wise thing to do. We have a lot at stake here. Think about what's at stake and be logical about this. Can you imagine her in debates against Barack Hussein Obama? Can you imagine her trying to do really in-depth interviews with aggressive reporters on Meet the Press, on Face the Nation, really grilling her? That she's never had to do. Can you imagine if she was facing that and facing real scrutiny on all the ethics questions and the other issues that came up as governor of Alaska and all of the petty feuds that she's had over the years? She's going to have her own senator from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski, a Republican senator, saying, I refuse to support her. Murkowski may even endorse Obama against her. I mean, it would be a catastrophe. Can you imagine this night after night on television? She would be like Barry Goldwater or George McGovern or one of the candidates in American history who lost overwhelmingly. It would be a catastrophe for the country. We can't afford this. We just can't afford it. Think about it. And we invite you to join our forum of the Jewish Task Force, JTF, to agree or disagree, whatever. You're welcome to join our forum, which you see the address for. And hopefully together we can defeat Barack Hussein Osama, and we can save America, Israel, and Western civilization. Shalom.